Someone will be able to do it. Live
Very
now.
good evening, ladies. Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I hope all of you are doing great. On the behalf of Student Organization, Democrats, and Lovely Professional University, I would like to welcome each one of you to this great session where we'll be discussing on the topic oppressed voice. But before that, I would like to take this one moment to acknowledge the esteemed presence of our keynote speaker who is here with us. She's none other than a great advocate on record of Supreme Court of India, a great person with an experience of 11 years. So we are having our very own Pallavi Pratap ma'am over here. A very warm welcome, ma'am. I hope you're doing great.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here, and thank you for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to speak on such an interesting and a very relevant topic.
Definitely, ma'am. So, ma'am, with no delay of time, I would like to request you to kindly start, presenting on the present topic so that all the students can get a very clear idea about the present scenario. Over to you,
Sure.
ma'am.
Thank you so much. When I was actually asked to talk about oppressed voices, I was thinking, what all can I speak about? Because there's so much that I would want to speak on, and how is it that I can, maybe make it so concise and bring it in just about 30 minutes or so, so that we can have a better, a question and answer series where we can have more questions that all of you would have about oppressed voices. But before that, I have a very small and a very quick presentation to give so that we can. I just want to very quickly take you through what I have made, and I've tried to, cover most of these things together. Now, when we talk about oppressed voices, the oppression that comes is primarily when the law in the country is not able to support, and that is when we see that, if there are rights which have been guaranteed by a constitution or if there are um, you know statutes which are already there to ensure that oppression does not exist, in order to bring about equality, in order to bring about um, a level playing field for everybody, we still see that oppression exists. And this oppression exists because of probably the law not reaching at the correct point in time, when, or the justice system not reaching, or the law not being implemented properly. And many a times we also see that the law which is there is probably redundant, and therefore we see that uh, you know, there is no implementation as such, and therefore the oppression. Now, case in point, even though probably I would have wanted to talk about this little later in the presentation, but there is also one part of law which I feel is very essential. There is law which is there, but when we are talking about implementation of law, we are also looking at how the administration is so unaware of basic laws which they are supposed to uphold. And I think case in point being the very recent Allahabad High Court's Lucknow bench's order as far as Hathras case was concerned. And I'm sure all law students would have looked at it and realize that how, an ADG law and order is not aware of what the 2013 amendment says as far as criminal law in the country is concerned, specifically IPC is concerned. And that came as a shock to all of us, to all our conscience. And I think this is where we see that there is oppression which exists because there is one, late implementation or no implementation of law, education not being there as far as the law is concerned and what it looks like. And there are so many other factors which I would like to discuss a little later on. But let's just understand what is oppression, and therefore what is oppressed voices. Oppression basically means an unjust or excessive exercise of power. It could be not reaching, or it could be just overreaching exercise of power. an unlawful, wrongful, or corrupt exercise of authority by a public official acting under color of authority that causes a person harm, and an inequality of bargaining power resulting in one party's lack of ability to negotiate or exercise meaningful choices. And I think in the country, it's not just in India, but you will see that globally, this has become something that we've been seeing. Oppression is part of the current times across the world. And this, this oppression actually, if you look at it, um, the reasons for the rise of oppression could be multiple, and we would probably we can have a whole debate about what could be the reason of this oppression that is happening all across the world. But to look at it in current times, oppression could be any of these. It could be authoritarian oppression, which we see where we've been seeing a lot of African countries are, facing that. Social oppression that we see where, we are trying to make our voices heard, and there is an oppression, and we are scared that, maybe we will be trolled, or could be this is primarily about social media, but also about social oppression that happens to different categories of people just now, be it and if you're looking at it, general category, SC, ST, OBC, all of us are saying that we are oppressed in some manner or the other. So is there a problem? And if there is a problem, then how is it that you can address it? Is somebody making too many noises about something? And is there, are we looking at, an inability to provide that trust or confidence in people that, there is a level playing field which exists, and it is important that, that a level playing field is provided. Privileges, I think uh, we see that, a lot of us have a lot of privileges which many of the people from the society that we come from are deprived of. And I think that again is a subsection that we look at. Racial oppression, I'm sure a lot of you will probably go abroad, study abroad maybe, and you will for first hand this thing see that there is a racial oppression that exists even now. As a matter of fact, I'm sure you would have, a lot of you would have read about this LinkedIn post which was doing rounds just now a little while back, where there was a lady who was practicing in UK in one of the courts, and she came from an African background, and she when she went to appear, she was asked by the court master who was there that are you represented by an advocate, and she says that I am the advocate. They use the term barrister over there, or she said that I am the one who's here, and there's someone else as a client. And then the same thing was asked to her by the security guard also. And that's when she said, and there was an entire article, if you would Google, you'll find that she said that I really want to live in a world where we will see that this kind of an oppression, as far as this racial discrimination is concerned, is done away with. It is, of course, she's got that level playing field just now. She is going to be treated equally as far as arguing a matter is concerned, but you will still see that that kind of baggage that she's carrying with her just because of the color of her skin is something that is oppressive. Class oppression, like I think we've all seen. Most importantly, gender oppression, and these days, of course, because a lot of people have started to come out of the closet, definitely sexual oppression. Now, if you look at it, when we talk about authoritarian oppression, we all understand that this is as a result of authoritarian governments. And we've started to see that there is an increase in such cases which are happening just now as far as democratic countries are concerned. And where are these oppressed voices? I think we've seen that happen. I think a lot of us would have seen the Tiananmen Square photo which was circulating a little while back, where there were these tanks and there was just one single person who was standing, and that was his oppressed voice that he was trying to show. It was not so much about words, it was more about the act of standing right in front of some 20, 25 tanks which were there. I think these are all instances which have made us look at how, without even using your voice, you're still making a point about you being oppressed about something or the other. We've been seeing that a lot, specifically in Southeast Asia just now. We've been seeing that a lot as far as Middle East is concerned. There is a lot of it which is happening there. And also generally in, across the world, we've been seeing that there is some kind of an authoritarian oppression. And, this has become very systematic. And I feel that, this basically, this whole authoritarian oppression that comes is as a result, or its roots we find is into social oppression that has been there for years, that we've seen. Now, this social oppression, we see that, this existed over a period of time, for decades, for years, for centuries. There was always, a class which was oppressing the other. There were always these rights which were missing from people. And, as the society, as far as Indian society is concerned, got divided into different classes, we saw that oppression actually kind of became, it was aggressive in that sense. Then we, of course, had these foreign rulers who came inside the country and started to create problems. And there was a lot of pressure which was created on the native people who were there from before, and especially a case in point being the Britishers. Even though we see that there were a lot of laws that we see even in existence till today, which was primarily derived from the Britishers and the past that we had, the shared history that we had. But we still see that even in today's world, there is a lot of existence, especially as far as India is concerned, of those oppressive laws even being carried forward just now. Social oppression, if I would just very quickly read this, is when a single group in society unjustly takes advantage of and exercises power over another group using dominance and subordination. If you look at it, it could be on basis of poverty, gender, class, race, or other categories. It could be by an institution. It could be a systematic oppression, and there are things that we've seen. If you look at it, the entire time period of when Hitler was there, or the Nazis were there, as far as Germany was concerned, that entire time period when Jews were oppressed, we've seen that there have been systematic ways in which oppression has taken place. And how did the oppressed voices come forward? Now, a case in point was about I don't know how many of you would recall reading this, but there was this gentleman. He was from Polish ancestry. He was basically Polish, and he was the first person who had gone inside the Hitler's, these concentration camps. And for 2-3 years, he was able to build up his entire, system, his entire network, because he wanted to ensure that he would be able to overthrow Nazis in some manner. And he had sent a lot of information back to the Polish government, and at some point Winston Churchill also was privy. I can tell you the name of the book which talks about this entire situation. It's by Mark Manson. It is, if I'm sure a lot of you would know the name also now that I've taken the name of the author. It is called Everything is Fucked by Mark Manson, and he talks about different areas where we see that people tried to make their voices heard during the course of history. And how their voice was denied, how their voices were cut short. And it is a fantastic read, very easy read, but if at all you guys have time, you should read it. And there he talks about how this Polish person who, being in a concentration camp, was able to establish his whole network, and all he required was a backup support to come from, Churchill's government or from Poland, but that did not come. And unfortunately, at some level, he had to escape from those concentration camp, and he went back to Poland. So we see that, it is not always that an oppressed voice is able to make, or provide the solution that one would want, because there is lack of support. But we are living in a world of numbers, and I think, if there are numbers which are available, we always see that that number can then result into bringing about the change that we want to see in the society. Privilege, like I said, is it refers to a socio-political immunity that one group has over others, derived from particular societal benefits. And this can lead to internalized oppression, where subordinate groups essentially give up the fight to get access to equality and accept their fate as a non-dominant group. I think this is more to do with the fact that you are told that you are not good enough, because, or you experience that you are not good enough because there is someone else who has everything that, that maybe the society or the political immunity that could be granted to them. But not everybody can reach at that same level because the privilege is missing. And if we look at the kind of oppressed voices that we talk about as far as privileges are concerned, I think one of the case in point that I have personally always felt, and I I'm sorry, I have at least felt that, it is in Delhi, where we see that, the education system here provides, earlier used to be that in a public school, they would have all, the students who would ordinarily apply, and they would be taken up as students in a particular, let's say, school. But then, a couple of years back, they brought about something which is called as, you know, um, giving reservation in public school to students belonging from EWS, which is economically weaker section. And we realized, that, it was more trying to provide the same privilege as far as education was concerned to as many people as possible, to make it reach out to as many people as possible. But what I have realized, and this is just my opinion, I may be completely wrong, but I've realized that, bringing those 25% students in school who come from EWS section, they are the ones who are the oppressed ones. They feel that oppression even in them just now, and the reason is that they have been pitted against these students who come from an extremely privileged background. And they, I don't know how, some kind of inequality can be brought about when these students are probably, if not consciously made to feel inferior, must be feeling inferior at some level. Even now with the COVID times, we've seen that despite the fact that a lot of the schools etc have become online, I'm not talking about any other city, I'm talking about Delhi itself, and I've seen that there are so many people, especially students, who are deprived um, of education just now from the schools that they are studying in, only because they do not own a mobile phone which has compatible, which has internet, and that they can use and study through those mobile phones or laptops and things like that. So I think that that is an oppression, and these oppressed voices do not have anything to say because there's nobody to hear them. All, even though the right to education is a fundamental right and that should reach everybody, but if there is a survey which is conducted, I can at least very clearly, from whatever experience that I have had of late, I realize that about 10 to 15% of the students from EWS section are not able to access internet or access their education. So for them, past 8 months is nothing. It's a big zero on what they wanted to achieve or what they wanted to study. Coming to racial oppression, I think this is not something that I really have to explain. I think we've all seen and understood what racial oppression looks like, and especially now that we've been seeing in the US, the white supremacy has been at its peak. And why is it that we see that there are so many outbursts that are happening just now, as far as the United States of America is concerned? Also, I don't know how many of you had a chance, but I highly recommend this, considering that you all are going to be lawyers very soon. If you all get some time, please go on YouTube and watch the confirmation hearing of Amy Barrett, who's going to be the judge for Supreme Court, who's been nominated by the Trump administration, and look at how she's questioned by the senators on all the kind of philosophy, on all the kind of thoughts that she had, on the kind of judgments that she's given. These senators come from both Democrats and Republicans, and um, there is a specific contention that they have as far as something which used to be called as Obamacare is concerned, and they have talked about how what Trump wants to do is to remove the pre-existing disease clause, so that he wants to make sure that Obamacare actually provided that if there is a pre-existing disease that somebody has, they will be brought about in the ambit of healthcare insurance, which is given to them. But Trump wants it to be removed. And you should see, especially the one where Kamala Harris is grilling her and asking her about that. I think these are the ones that if you do get time, do listen to it, because this is where you see how different a lot of process in democratic countries are, even though everyone knows what the outcome is going to be. But there are these voices, there are these oppressed voices, especially if you look at it in terms of for instance, I remember very well that when the Democrats were asking questions, they were showing these photographs of people who had lost their life due to corona. And you know and they were saying that, you tell us which way are you going to vote, because there is a voting that has to happen on the Obamacare, and it's later on the implementation of it. So just go through it. I'm sorry, I don't want to get into it, but I really found that to be very intriguing. And if you all have some time, then do I highly recommend that you watch those videos. It is extremely informative. And if you are at it, then I would also suggest that you should also watch RBG's confirmation hearing, because that, I think, she has talked about, in her confirmation hearing, at least she's talked about women's right. And I very specifically remember that I think there was a Republican senator who had asked her that, you had represented, and this was some kind of a question that he asks RBG, and he says, you had represented a woman from army who wanted to abort her, no, who wanted to give birth to the child, whereas the army was saying that if you want to continue, then you should abort the child. Whereas, you are the one who has been considered to be upholder of, the right to choice. And she gives a beautiful answer, and she says that, I was talking about right to choice, and right to choice includes the fact that if I want to abort a child, that is my right, and if I want to bring a child in this world, then that is my right too. And I think that was very beautifully explained. If you all get a chance, do hear it. Then, of course, I think George Floyd case is something that we've seen so much over social media. If you look at it and compare it with India, I think um, you just have to just turn your head towards any direction and you'll see that such cases are happening in India every single day. This is not about police atrocities only. I think we've very recently seen a very overt police atrocity, as a result of which the High Court had to take a suo motu cognizance, and to call out the police officials, just to teach them exactly what the 2013 amendment meant. It is such a sad thing that we are living in a world where we see that oppression is huge, and that every time a person wants to make their voices heard, it is so difficult. Coming to class oppression, I think we've noticed it. We've noticed there is an upper class. We noticed that then there is middle class, and then you have upper middle class and a lower middle class and some middle class in between. And then we are talking about working class, and we are talking about poor class, and we are talking about BPL. So many different classes and so many different oppressions that they are facing. Um, and these classes then come and try and voice their concerns. For instance, I would just want to take you through something which also pertains to law, especially Insolvency and Bankruptcy Act. I think a lot of you would have seen that there was a judgment which was given by Justice Nariman, where he said the home buyers who were there would be considered as a financial creditor. And this was Pioneer Infrastructure case, where he had said that they will be considered as financial creditors. Then what happens is that when the COVID comes in, the threshold is reduced to 1 lakh, is actually increased to 1 crore from 1 lakh. So what then happens is that where maybe a home buyer who had just bought a property for some 8 lakh rupees, or there was an association of um, um, people who had probably 10 people who'd bought a property for 8 lakh each, their amount comes out to 80 lakh rupees. And if they want to take the particular builder to under and tries to exert that right that the Supreme Court had provided, as far as using the framework of IBC is concerned, we will see that they cannot actually reach or cross the threshold of 1 crore. And that is oppression. That is complete contempt in a way of the Supreme Court order. So what recourse does these home buyers have? A lot of you would argue that it becomes a civil suit, and therefore you can go and start with your recovery proceedings, or you go into consumer court and do it. But then effectively, what is the solution that is given to them, considering that earlier they had a very quicker manner of IBC coming in, where they could find the solution. And also, I don't know if you guys have studied about IBC or not, but if you'll Google it a bit, you'll realize that there's something called as a CIRP process, where the claims are given. And if a home buyer is not allowed to give their claim in a manner that they would have wanted to, when they have a whole group or an association which is coming in, I think that kind of devoids them of the rights that they would have probably wanted to utilize. Coming to our favorite uh, point, and also unfortunately the current topic of discussion, which is gender oppression. Why I say unfortunately is that despite so many years, so many decades, so many centuries of being here, we still see that there is so much gender-based oppression that is there, and everybody is trying to you know voice it out. Everybody is trying and this is not limited to just one gender. We are looking at gender oppression that is happening across gender. If we talk about women, I don't know if you guys have followed up today, but there was a writ, I think, which was filed by one of the lawyers about how gender oppression still continues, and where very recently Madhya Pradesh court ordered saying that, there was a rape victim, and she was, and the accused person was supposed to have the victim tie a rakhi. I mean, is that how you listen to oppressed voices? Or are you just putting your voice um, on top of these oppressed people and their voices? I think that is where today, interestingly, Justice Khanwilkar and Justice Gawai have issued notice on that. And I think that is a huge step forward. Looking at other gender oppression, we also see that, men suffer as well. You would probably say, ma'am, probably you've lost your cookies or something. But you see it every day. 498A cases, where there are so many false 498A cases which are put against a man. I think that in itself is also gender oppression. We see a lot of men's right activists. So it is not that we can only say that, oh, one gender is completely oppressed. It is true that one gender is oppressed much more and for much longer time than one would imagine, or that maybe we are in that, at that tipping point stage where we would want that, the balance is tipped over. But nonetheless, we see that, this is still there, that oppression happens. And now, if I'm talking about two genders, I would also want to talk about the LGBTQ community. We see that LGBTQ community is also trying to, go ahead and talk about things that they want to. They want what what their life should be. And they have a right. I think recently, if you would have all followed, Delhi High Court has issued notice and asked one of the registrars to say that, to provide an affidavit, I believe, on why same-sex marriage cannot be registered. And it goes on to say that, a same-sex marriage should be given equality, because it is just marriage of two people who essentially belong from the same sex, and that's about it. But the love is already there. So I think this is basically that. The judiciary, at least, or the law at least, is trying to provide. I think Nas Foundation case, and then the later case actually, provided a lot of support to this entire section which was feeling oppressed. Now, coming to the rule of law and human rights, and insight of the international laws by the United Nations, I think we all kind of know that international human rights framework, together with international humanitarian law, international criminal law, and international refugee law, we see that uh, there is an entire framework which is there. But how often are we able to correlate and bring it down to India? How often are we able to provide that systematic approach to uplift? Because if we look at it, a lot of times we feel, and this slide definitely talks about the rule of law in modern times, but here I would want to talk about um, the lack of rule of law in modern times. Why I say that, and I may be, completely wrong, is that there is rule of law which exists, but when we are talking about modern times, we see that the oppressed voices uh, are not coming out in the front. And we see these media houses, we see these different media houses who are trying to, um, uh, be the flag bearers of these oppressed voices, but we see it very clearly as to how often are they able to do anything to achieve that end. Very rarely. We are seeing, unfortunately, the kind of times that we are living in. And I don't know if you were all able to watch. I'm sorry, I'll just close this presentation so that I can maybe just, yeah, there. We've been able to see, that there is this whole TRP related issue that we've seen just now. And interestingly, we've also seen something. I don't know if you guys followed it. Yesterday, Mr. Salvi was arguing before Justice Chandrachud on, about the Republic TV TRP issues. And Justice Chandrachud said something which made so much sense. He said, why is it that we think that our high courts are not equipped to provide protection or solution under Article 226? Why do we always think that we have to come under Article 32, go to Supreme Court and agitate our right? That is a wrong thing to do. I think these are very important questions that we've seen, and these are very important uh, you know, um, arguments that we have to look at. And of course, the SLP would have definitely, sorry, the writ would have definitely been dismissed, but of course came to rescue and withdrew it so that they could agitate their right before the concerned High Court. So this is something that I just wanted to very quickly cover. I wanted to definitely touch on some very contentious issues, but I have realized that it is best to answer questions than to open an entire Pandora box. So over to you now.
Thank you so much, Pallavi ma'am, for giving such clear idea about what operation is all about. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's a very, very, very humble request to each one of you to kindly put up your doubts in a very formal way in the chat box. Please make sure that you kind of avoid any kind of controversial statements out there, because our intention is to go for a good, healthy discussion, but not to create any kind of controversies. With that clear instruction, I would like to urge you to kindly put up your doubt, and I can see a very first question from Dr. Meenu Chopra, ma'am. She is asking a very a question which I guess is in the head of most of the youngsters who are attending this one session right now, and I would like to read it out loud. That what will happen when the protector turns to be a destructor? What option is available to the oppressed? What advice would you give to such oppressed people, especially in the case like Hathras case? Ma'am, adding to this one thing, this is not the only one case which we have seen. We have seen a lot of cases in last couple of years, and we have seen how long does it takes to get justice. Just one example is Nirbhaya. From 2012 till 2020, it was a big, like story altogether. So, ma'am, what is the ultimate solution you would like to suggest, or what could be done to, so that oppressed can get justice as soon as possible? Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. And that's such an interesting question, Dr. Chopra. I really wanted someone to at least ask me that question. And, you know, I will just tell you what I can in terms of the background that I come in from, and which
Mm,
is litigation.
mm,
And I have realized that, there are so many segments we
mm,
see where, as an institution, we are not able to live up to the expectations. When Dr. Meenu Chopra says that, what will happen when the protector turns to be destructor, and that is, I
mm,
think, something that we saw live on national television as to how that destruction was happening. And what was it that was there in the minds of people? I mean, I ask you, or maybe I put that question to myself, and I ask myself, what was the option that was available to people who were oppressed? They had absolutely no option at that point in time because they were kept in captivity at some place. They were not allowed to speak to people. They were not allowed to grieve. They were not allowed to, you know, um, be able to do the last rites of their child. I think all of this was destruction of fundamental rights that is so enshrined in our constitution, that is guaranteed to us. And what happened then? We saw, and I think, a lot of us would, I at least was waiting with bated breaths to, have at least one court take cognizance of it, take cognizance of the fact that there is something which was so fundamental, abuse of, power, which was happening. And a lot of people were making noises about, why is it Supreme Court? Why is Supreme Court not taking suo motu cognizance of it? And then, of course, the High Court came in and took suo motu cognizance of it. When we look at the rights that can be given to oppressed classes, unfortunately, everything is there in our constitution. We have special laws for every little thing. We have special things as far as, if you're looking at 376, a plain reading of the 2013 amendment says very clearly, as far as 376D is concerned, and it defines gang rape in such a perfect manner that you see, you read it, and you understand. And still after that there is this you know um, wrong media reports, wrong claims which were made. There was no dignity which was there. Unfortunately, we saw all of that, and this was happening right in front of our eyes, and we could see that this oppression is there, and it is system induced, it is institutional oppression which cannot be done away with unless and until there is some way that we have our institutions which become extremely you know they have a lot of power with them. Then only we will see that there is some manner in which oppressed people can get some kind of justice, because justice for them is completely delayed. I mean, unfortunately, right now also, I remember it very clearly when this Hathras case was happening. The High Court took cognizance, and the matter was posted about 8 or so days later from the date when the incident was happening. We saw, and a lot of us would argue that probably justice was delayed because you had some 8 days for people to think. But I would also argue from the other side, saying that at least they took cognizance, and then the kind of order that they brought, I think it was huge. That order has been essentially very it talks about everything if you look at it. Even now, I'm sure a lot of you would have followed yesterday's order as far as the Batra case is concerned, where the Batra case has been overruled, and it has been very clearly said that a shared household, the definition of shared household, and how a woman can also claim her rights through the relatives of the husband. I think the every day we are seeing that judiciary is doing something or the other to ensure that the rights are protected. But unfortunately, when we look at implementation, it is not happening. And, none of us actually have that magic wand to just do that and, it's all over and it's all gone. Nothing like that, unfortunately, can happen unless our institutions are really strong and powerful.
Absolutely true, ma'am. Can't agree more on that. But yeah, talking about this one thing, we can see a bit of amazing questions. But I would like to bring one question specially to your notice. Like, we are having most of the youngsters who are about to, get into the profession of law. And talking about one such famous case is the Nirbhaya case, where probably in the recent few years, people were not aware the name of the victim was Jyoti Singh. They thought it was actually Nirbhaya, and a lot of questions were raised on Mr. AP Singh on his moral and ethical standards. That being a human, how can he support such heinous act? So, ma'am, I would like to request you to give some idea about how exactly this profession works. When you are defending any individual, what kind of mindset you should be having, what ethical moral standards you should be personally having in addition to your professionalism. So there was this one question that was raised on every single lawyer who was related with such cases. So, ma'am, I request you to kindly give your, perspective on this as well. Like, what are this all about?
So, a lot of times we feel that, it is so wrong for a lawyer to represent the accused people. And, you know, um, that holds true for all of us. We have our bloods boiling because we think, okay, why is it that you are representing someone like that? Like yesterday, there was entire Twitter which was filled up with the fact that why Mr. Salvi was representing Republic TV when and so much debate revolving around it. Similarly, I remember AP Singh case, the same thing happened, and I remember very clearly he said that if my daughter or if my sister would do something like this, I will kill her and things like that.
True.
And the kind of
Mm-hmm.
statements that he had made on national television. Um, but that does not stop the fundamental right that an accused person also has. And that accused person also has the same right of being provided legal counsel and legal support as the victim has. So therefore, if AP Singh was doing what he was doing his job which he was supposed to do because a client had approached. But then if you look at it from the ethical standpoint, I would not want to comment on that because that was to each their own. For everyone, it is their own insight as to what they want to do. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you would have seen that advertisement that came yesterday, which was making a lot of noise about Harvey Specter and what's the other guy's name? Some Mishra guy. So, and then a lot of debate about why is it that, you're comparing the West, and, we still have that whole Western service thing. Or and then I think the person, the institute came out with an apology, or not really apology, but more of a clarificatory note. But what does that bring about? It does not. It's like comparing apples with oranges. It is litigation is very different in this country as compared to any other country. Here you would basically running from pillar to post for your client, and still you will find so many lawyers probably not being ethical. And that is case in point. I'm sure a lot of you would have read about yesterday's incident where there was an income tax raid on a very prominent lawyer's office, and some and he's basically a dispute resolution lawyer who's amassed so much wealth and so much cash was found out from his office. What do we see? That is where the professional ethics is going wrong, because that is not dispute resolution at any level. That is most definitely corruption, which has gone so much inside our system just now. So in as far as Nirbhaya case was concerned, I think that became a watershed moment for all of us to see for ourselves that justice will reach you, even if it is delayed by 8 years. It will still reach you. But of course, there are so many. If there is one Nirbhaya who's probably getting justice, there are other 10 people who are not getting that justice, unfortunately. And that is where we come in. That is where it is our job tomorrow. We are going to be lawyers. It is our job to make sure that, that kind of justice reaches everyone who truly deserves it.
True, ma'am. So, ma'am, there is one more agenda that actually comes across as a trend. If we see, like in the last current few years, whenever there is a major rape case or any case that violates the, ethical standards or rules and regulations of the country, just after that, we can see the television or internet being filled with a lot of similar cases, which creates a trend. And then comes the next trend that a lot of innocent people are actually dragged as accused members, and they again face the consequences. So, ma'am, what's your take on this? Like, is it a trend, or is it something that we really need to understand that apart from who are actually oppressed, there are other people who are subjected to be oppressed? I mean, they're just made a, like a pillar of a television show. I mean, a lot of people who are actually innocent are dragged into rape cases with false accusations and all. So, ma'am, what's your take on this? How should we deliver justice to them who have not done anything wrong, but yet the whole, the scenarios around them are actually accusing them? So, what is this situation we can do here?
See, any such point that you are trying to make here, I will actually just want to take one step back and discuss about something which is called as trial by media, which is something that we're seeing every single day.
True.
What are the stages of trial? If you and I discuss it, there are 3 stages of trial. One is the first stage, which is investigation, where you have the IO going ahead and investigating. The second stage of trial is where you have the charge sheet, which is filed. And the third stage of trial is where the actual trial takes place. Unfortunately, media just now is running their own parallel investigation, and then the media itself becomes a public court to decide who's the victim and who's the accused. And then every second day that narrative changes, just because they want to have their TRP or whatever it is that the kind of benefit that they want to derive. I think there is a video, and I would suggest that a lot of you who are interested in this subject should watch. This was a video, I think posted on NewsX. This was Ram Jethmalani Memorial Lecture, the first memorial lecture which was conducted this year. And you see all of the bigger Supreme Court senior advocates arguing on trial by media. And there was a quote which was there by Ram Jethmalani, who said that, trial by media is nothing but breach of law. And that is true, because you have somebody pointed out as an accused person You don't even have evidence. As a matter of fact, today itself, I think the Delhi High Court has issued notice against one of the very leading TV channels where they said that they had evidence to show that a certain person was an accused person. So they said,
mm,
file an affidavit and tell us where was that evidence that you had. How is it that you can out of the blue go ahead and say that, okay, this person is wrong and this person is an accused person? Then show the evidence also. You cannot
true.
just one day wake up and say, okay, this person is wrong. We've also seen very good cases. I think a lot of you especially would remember the Ruchika Gerutra case, which happened, the Nutra case, which happened many years back. And it was there when we see that it was because of media that, the person who was the accused person was put to justice after 19 years. He got, this girl was molested by a very senior police officer, and she commits suicide after that. uh, Everybody kept running from pillar to post, but it was media who kept that issue alive, and that the accused person was then brought to put to justice on after 19 years. Media has done some fabulous job. Priyadarshini Mattu case, I think that again, or Nirbhaya, for instance, media has done a fabulous job. But then at the same time, why change the narrative? When you know that something is a matter of trial, why change the narrative at any point in time? I think that is where we've been seeing a lot of problem. And the biggest problem is that there is this witch hunt which is going on. So you just go ahead, say, okay, this person is wrong. There is evidence, no evidence, nobody cares, because everything is a public court now. 2G spectrum case, I think, is the biggest case in point. Everybody is, acquitted as far as the trial is concerned. But at that point in time, everybody wanted to make sure that, somebody was put to task. And therefore, Supreme Court actually became the court of first instance. Have
Mm.
we ever heard of that? We've never heard of something like that. So I think, there are accesses that we've been seeing as far as the country is concerned.
True, ma'am. Ma'am, so there is one more interesting question I would like to bring to your notice, that justice system gets manipulated by the power of external factors. And does it make people more uncomfortable, and they'll definitely gonna believe from the law? So I'm sure that this is something that we should be discussing about, just because of this delays and drags and external forces that are actually dragging the case and taking more duration to get justice. Do you think it's gonna create a good positive impact and a faith on law that we are going to get law? Because we have seen a lot of cases just because of the time duration. It's been some ages and there is no point of getting justice at that certain point of time.
I don't know how many of you have been following this. I'm sure a lot of you would be. The Priya Ramani and MJ Akbar case. The entire trial is done. The witnesses have been examined, cross examined, everything has happened. And suddenly now the judge who was hearing the case says that I'm
Mm,
going to give an order with respect to the transfer, because now my court has been assigned for special purpose, and therefore now I'm going to transfer this case. I'm going to give an order as far as whether or not this should be transferred. Do you
mm,
realize how much of the court judicial time has been wasted in this? How much of work could be attained, and how many people could have had justice? And now suddenly this is going to be transferred, and probably there will be a de novo trial that will start again. What has happened now with a de novo trial? Both sides know each other's arguments already. There was a criminal trial which took place, and if you have a de novo trial and everybody knows exactly what they are supposed to answer, then where is the faith? Where is the courtcraft? Where is the art of cross examination that one has to get out, from an accused person or from a witness, the specific point that you are looking for? Now everybody knows exactly what they have to answer. So where is the judicial system, or where is justice there? And definitely, I remember it very clearly in that talk that I was talking about media trial. Mr. Sybil said that that judges are also human beings, investigators are also human beings. Are they not affected by media trials? They are definitely affected by media trials, and therefore they are also affected by the political will. They are all affected by many external factors which are in play. So then what do? You want, if there is a system which is there, it is not upon us to clean it, because it is, we are completely helpless as far as our system is concerned. We can only start with our own selves and keep ourselves clean in order to ensure that what we want to deliver is achieved. I think that's the only thing that I can say as far as this goes.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So I would like to ask one last question. What is the
Sure.
ultimate message that you want to give to all the youngsters who are present right now with us in this session?
As far as career advice is concerned, then if many of you choose to be, what is the name of that Mishra guy, by the way? I'm sorry, from the yesterday's character. What was his name? I don't know. There, from the yesterday's newspaper advertisement which was there, there was Harvey Specter and there was this Mishra gentleman, Akshay Kumar, basically.
Mhm.
The idea is that if you choose to become the latter, know that it is litigation that you are getting into, and litigation is something which is very, very difficult as far as India is concerned, and it is all the more difficult for women. So, if you choose it, then make sure that you don't give up, that make sure that you realize that you have to put in a lot of effort. It is not, your 9 to 5 kind of a job. It is your own efforts that you're putting in. 10, 14 hours, 16 hours, doesn't matter, as long as you're doing it with, your blinders on and you're only looking at the one single focus. And if you choose to be Harvey Specter and look at, even though he was a litigating lawyer, but look at the corporate side of a law firm and things like that, then I think it is important that you should understand one thing, that there will always be law firm politics that you will have to take care of, because it becomes little difficult with that. But when you know what you want to achieve, I think the sky is the limit. Just now, a couple of days back, I was talking to a friend of mine, and we were talking about this gentleman called Tejas Karya, who's the partner with Shardul Amarchand, and he's an FCIARB, which is fellow of the Chartered Institute of Arbitration. And this gentleman had passed out in the year 2000. And, he was considered to be the doyen of arbitration. He's still considered to be the doyen of arbitration law. You have to look at what it is that you want to do in your life. There are going to be so many avenues which are going to be open, but people who are passing out in 2020 or 2021, it's going to be a little bit difficult for you. So just don't lose hope, just do what you want to do and keep at it. Success definitely comes to people who are patient and people who are consistent with their efforts. I think that's all that I would want to
Thank you so much, Palvi ma'am, for such
say.
amazing words and such great discussion. I'm so glad that I'm a part of this one particular session. On the behalf of Student Organization Democrats and LPU family, I would like to specially thank you for your presence and for this great conversation. Thank you so much, ma'am. We are really, really, really delighted to have you today.
Thank you so much for having me here. And if you have any queries, you can always write to me on my LinkedIn or wherever. I'm pretty active on social media and I like to give answers to people who have queries. And all the best. Please don't loosen heart. I think this is just a tough time that the entire world is going through, but this is going to pass. And we will all see brighter and happier days very soon. So, all the
Definitely.
best. And thank you so much for having me here. Have a beautiful weekend.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Have a great day. So, ladies and gentlemen, with this, we would like to wind up the session. But before we wind up, I would like to give one message that we are yet in the middle of the pandemic. Though we have passed the worst phase, but right now it's time for us to be more optimistic, more focused, and most positive. The main part is it's our responsibility as the youngsters of this country to break the chain. So, one thing we all can do is to help every individual who is around us. And talking about the law, of course, exceptions are everywhere. Every coin has two sides. But if we have good moral values and good intentions to help, I'm very sure we're going to have a world where we'll be having everything that is online, on track, and a sinful earth. With that grace message, I would like to wind up the session. And on the behalf of Student Organization Democrats, I would like to thank each one of you for your successful contribution and for your presence in this great session. Stay tuned with us. We'll be back shortly with many more such amazing events. Have a great day. Stay safe. Do not get out of the house unless until it's very required. And please take all the precautions that are required. My name is Shan, and I would like to officially sign off the event. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.